Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Joining me today is Shawn Stack, who is Vice President at Bromwich+Smith here in Calgary. Thanks for joining us today, Shawn.
Oh, it's great to be here, my friend.
Okay, well, the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy Canada recently put out some numbers showing a 36% decrease in consumer insolvencies, but the percentage of proposals are on the rise when it comes to consumers. Okay, well, first of all, Shawn, can you explain, the reason for the decrease in insolvencies, and what does it mean to have a rise in proposals?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Mario. So I guess as far as the decrease in insolvencies go, typically a consumer insolvency is a voluntary assignment. So it's not like within corporate insolvencies where it would be a court order and sort of a creditor action. This is usually consumers actually look to file proposals or bankruptcies themselves because it affords them what's called a stay of proceedings, which stops the creditor's actions. So the decrease that's happened since the pandemic has hit is, notwithstanding that people are in worse and worse financial places, because there's not that external pushing from the creditors, many consumers are actually electing not to file because they don't have that external pressure.
Okay, then super. So what is, when you look at the general state of finances of people, what has been the impact, do you think, in the past year of the pandemic and on debts and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, it's again, you got some great questions, my friend. So I guess really, when we look sort of historically at what's occurred, like there's been this 36% decrease in insolvencies being filed. It doesn't mean that it's a rosier picture for Canadians. In fact, what's occurring is the Canadians are falling further and further into debt. However, they're just not taking those steps to restructure formally under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. So although things are significantly worse for Canadians in certain sectors, in other sectors, as you know, that's been reported, some people are coming out really rosy with this pandemic. Their savings are up, and it's a bit of sadly, that's sort of the tale of two cities where one is doing well and one's not doing so well. So I think it's really great that you're doing your part here to help normalize this conversation of debt and talking about the availability for citizens to restructure.
Okay, now, Shawn, maybe you could explain, when someone files a proposal, what impact does that have on their credit rating?
Yeah, so when one files a consumer proposal, it is under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. So you need to, you're required to use a licensed insolvency trustee like Bromwich+Smith. And the idea behind a consumer proposal is it puts a stay of proceedings in place. So essentially what a stay does is it stops all creditors' actions. And Mario, the reason for this is there's basically four principles in our insolvency legislation. And the first one is the rehabilitation of the debtor. So it allows them to have that stay that stops creditors' actions so we can focus on getting a good budget and helping them restructure this so they can get in a healthier position going forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, Shawn, when again, talking about personal finances of people, from what you see and over the years, historically, I guess, what are some of the early warning signs of people that they're heading into trouble?
Yeah, what's interesting, Mario, is a lot of the times when we're assisting people, what they're actually saying is, I ought to have been here years before. Often the insolvency itself, where someone says, I need to move this forward, it's triggered as a consequence of some sort of external thing like a job loss or an illness or the death of a loved one. But a lot of times what occurs is it's a slow degeneration into overwhelming debt that it finally, at a certain point, someone kind of turns and says, no, I do need to address this. Because for the most part, we kind of know the situation is there, but much like the weather, we kind of think like, hopefully it's just going to get better. And the reality is it's not going to get better. We actually have to take active steps And that's why we're in the community, to help people take those steps.
Yeah. The only other thing, Shawn, I'm interested in your thoughts on is, you take the housing market now, right? And it's just like nuts right across the
Yeah.
country, right? And part of the reason for that is the extremely low interest rates. Is there a danger, like, in that? That, the having the low interest rates, a lot of people are taking on more debt because of that. That maybe there is going to be a price to pay eventually.
Yeah, it's again, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that we do, Mario, as Canadians, is we place a lot of our faith within the creditor-debtor relationship, and we say, well, a creditor wouldn't allow me to get into this bad situation, so I should be okay to borrow this money. And what's really important is that the role of the creditor is not to make sure that you don't become insolvent. That actually falls onto you as an individual. So what we need to be looking at is what our future goals are, and saying, how does this fit within my future focus? Just because the bank says, hey, you can have this amount of credit to purchase a home, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the best thing for you. And I guess, Mario, the other thing I would say is, as this housing market increases, one of the things that also happens is we find that people just start taking out lines of credit on their home, and they almost use it as a deduction, as a bank account. And what they're doing is they're eroding this asset that they originally had planned to use in their retirement, and they're using it for the small little bits of thing that we don't even remember too much about later on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks very much for your insights on this, Shawn.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Super. That was Shawn Stack, who is Vice President of Bromwich+Smith here in Calgary. This has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on MegaPixx Media. Thanks for joining us today.